to discuss, in the age of agentic commerce, how can we get found online? How can we be discovered online? That's what we're going to discuss in our next panel. And I've already introduced Miss Reillier, Laure. She will start and introduce all the other panelists. Thank you, Laure.
So, in January 2025, so this year, the MIT Technology Review declared AI means the end of internet search as we've known it. So for many of you in this room, that statement isn't theoretical, it's business reality. If you're a business trying to stay visible online, if you're a platform managing discovery, if you're a policymaker thinking about competition, this is reshaping your business reality right now. To understand what's changing, let's quickly look at how search has evolved. So in the 1990s, we had Yahoo's human-curated directories. So editors were organizing websites into categories. And then in 1998, Google revolutionized the market with PageRank, using algorithms to analyze links and rank pages. And for 20 years, that system was prevalent. You type keywords, Google returned a list of blue links, and then you clicked on those websites. And businesses learned how to optimize that, right? And that's the SEO, search engine optimization industry we've all known. But we're now entering a third era, and that's conversational search AI, where you don't get the list of blue links. What you do is that you get directly answers from AI, and that AI has read and understood content from the web. And the adoption is staggering. 35% of people in the US now use GenAI tools. And out of those people, 44% use these tools as their primary search tool. If we look globally, 900 million people use GenAI tools. That's 11% of the population, and that number will certainly keep growing. So we also have other channels. Nearly 40% of Gen Z people now use TikTok or Instagram for restaurant recommendations, bypassing Google. And so the paradigm of keywords, ranking, blue links is completely reimagined. This isn't a future trend, it's happening right now. Before I introduce the panelists, I wanted to do a very quick poll in the room and online. I want to ask you, do you think your current SEO strategy is fit for purpose in the age of AI? If yes, raise the hand. Or Delphine, I want to know what you are doing at Refurbed.
Just to get understanding of the basis, how many of you do at your?
That's very interesting. Justin, do we have the results online? Interesting.
No.
Okay. So let me now introduce our panel. To help understand this transformation, I'm delighted to introduce three experts in the field. Professor Alex Young, Professor and Chair of the Management Science and Operations at London Business School. And his recent research focuses on platform governance and the value chain of AI. Got Polly Taliwell, who's the COO of Enterprise Nation. Enterprise Nation is a community of hundreds of thousands of SMEs in the UK. And Polly brings the crucial perspective of small businesses. And I'm curious to hear about, what these businesses are doing right now to stay visible online. And last but not least, John Earnshaw has worked in organic search for the last 20 years and a visiting lecturer at the University of Hertfordshire. John works with major brands like Harrods and Nordstrom, helping them navigate what dramatic shift you've seen in your entire career. So John will share practical insights on what's actually working today. And for people who've have just joined the room, we've just published 2 reports, Collective Intelligence for AI, which you can grab as you leave the room on this very topic. So let's start by understanding the landscape. Perhaps let's start with all of you introducing yourself and sharing what you've been observing in your field. How has the landscape changed over the last 18, 24 months? What has surprised you most about this transformation?
I'll go first. Thank you. I said to my wife this morning, I'm going to go and talk about search and the fact I've worked in search for 20 years. And she said, no, you haven't. It's been like 25. And it's true. And for 23 of those years, search and SEO was boring. It was easy. Search was boring. There were blue links and it had to change. And of course, it all changed at the end of 2022. And before the end of 2022, all we had to deal with was algorithm updates. The initial ones, Big Daddy, Jagger, back in the day, that caused you to either gain in visibility or drop in visibility. And then we had broad core updates that happened every 3 months. You could win or lose everything overnight, but those were fine. And then we had spam updates, helpful content updates, quality updates, double eat, all of these things that as SEOs we had to do to content and websites to make sure they could be found behind blue links. So we'd stopped caring about Yahoo back in the day. We stopped caring about anything except Google. And for 23 years, life was good. And then OpenAI came along and launched ChatGPT. And I was initially really excited. I didn't know what it was, but I'd laid down my $19 a month. I'm going to have some of that. And then I started to see what was so good about it. And then we've got, I won't go into too much detail now, we've got a lot of young people who are using ChatGPT. And when they go to ChatGPT, they don't go best blazers. No, they engage and demand a conversation. And for me, what's really surprised me most is over the past 2 years, the speed with which people have adopted conversational search. They are engaging in multi-turn, minutes-long conversations with AI models, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, doesn't matter what it is, Gemini. And we stopped using keywords. And the biggest change that's happened in the last 2 years that I could never believe, and I could see it coming, but I still didn't believe it. The old days of optimizing a web page for a keyword to get onto page 1 of Google is gone forever. Not because it doesn't work, but because nobody uses keywords. We use long strings and conversations. So for me, it's just the speed with which all that has happened. And now our job as an SEO, and I'd love to talk to you about getting it dialed because I'm still trying to get it dialed. It's about changing the mindset of optimizing pages for keywords to get into Google to optimize your content for synthesization in LLMs. It's all about synthesization. Doesn't mean everything that we did before doesn't work. It absolutely does. You've got to get all of that dialed if you're going to pass the tests that get you into the conversation. So for me, it's the speed.
I'm Polly Dallywell, COO at Enterprise Nation. We start off with very humble beginnings in the sense of we actually read the book by Benoit and Laure. I'm a massive champion, so thank you for having me. I'm coming at it from a perspective of small businesses and startups. So Enterprise Nation, we're a small business support community. We've built a platform which essentially matches small businesses to different types of support. I'm a female founder. I have a florist here in London, and I'm looking for funding. How do we, within 3 clicks, match them directly to that support? So we built out a marketplace to do all of that. When we first started, we had 5 or 6 members joining every week. We were very in person. COVID then hit and we had to rapidly learn about building a platform. We were a team of 7 then, we're now at 50, and now we have a few thousand members joining every single week. Everything is free for the small business as well. So with that has come a lot of responsibility of everything that we talk about in these rooms. We have to simplify for small businesses and startups. So not everyone is in the digital space. The florist down the road is not thinking about what you're talking about. She's thinking how, when someone searches for, I'm looking for flowers for my mum at Christmas, someone who's maybe 25, how does a florist down the road show up? So for us, we have to always make sure that the conversation around search, content is always massively simplified for these small businesses. Now, what we're seeing is there is going to be a big gap. So we're in rooms here in London. There are towns, high street towns, where you'll rock up to high street stores and they don't even have websites, social media pages. So we talk about AI search and generative search, which is great. I think it's incredible. However, government and organizations in this room need to do a lot more, I feel, on simplifying the message, but making it more inclusive for small businesses as well. So from Enterprise Nation, we come at it from a stance of small business and startups, and we're always trying to help them start, grow, and scale here in the UK. We are actually quite nervous that not enough businesses know about the issues that are about to hit them. And I think a lot has changed in the last year. You mentioned the stat of how much search has moved away from Google into ChatGPT. Businesses have no idea about this. So the harsh reality is outside of this room, lots of businesses are going to fall even more behind. But it's our job at Enterprise Nation. We are a small business ourselves. We're a team of 50. We have 10,000 pieces of content. So my job is to make sure as COO, how do we make sure that we're optimized for search so that we're moving forward as well? So I'll come at it from a small business ourselves because this is not easy. Bigger picture, search is not the priority as CEOs, founders in this room. Unfortunately, it's keeping your head above the water. It's building your team, but content will lead to sales. So I think we always need to remember that content is key in all of this. And I know you work with big brands, but how do small businesses have the punch of a big brand, but with way less budget? And I think that's kind of the bigger conversation for us at Enterprise Nation at the moment.
And I can help you with that one.
Perfect.
Thank you for. You hear me? Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Alex Yang. I'm a professor from London Business School. I'm very happy that we have very successful alumni to organizing to have this type of event and organizing this opportunity. Of course, I didn't have the honor to teach Laure, but we have a lot of fantastic programs. If any of you are interested, we are about, I'm trying to get the sense, we're about 2 tube stations that way, very, very close, next to the park. Back to myself, I'm a scholar in the area of the intersection of value chain and technology. So over the last few years, I've been focusing on innovations in digital platforms as well as AI. So because of that, AI search engine is a natural, right? So the search engine business relies heavily on the economic principles for platforms. So in direct or indirect network effect in this case. And we're seeing a lot of changes on how the value chain is restructuring from both the demand side as of how people are doing search differently, and from the supply side as of how the informations are presented and aggregated, compressed, right? A couple of days ago, so I have a little bit confess, I have an 11-year-old son who loves cooking. So a couple of days ago, he was looking for a new pen for his pen collection. And just as Joe, you said, he didn't go to Google, right? He knows Google very, very well, but he was having a conversation with ChatGPT, trying to understand what kind of pens he should buy, right? So this type of new behavior that we see from the customer side is really coming. It's really coming. But the other thing is, as scholars, we take a longer sort of horizon perspective. these type of things, of course, this is not the first danger or peril for search. Right, a couple of years ago, quite a few colleagues or students were telling me Amazon is going to replace Google, because when people want to buy something, they don't go to Google for search, they go directly to Amazon because the information quality is higher. It's more direct. So the industry have experienced some of this, and there are a lot of things to understand, of course, for the AI, for the OAV.
Thank you all. So let's start with how people search today, right? So John, you mentioned that people have abandoned the keyword game for long conversations. Can you give us some examples in practice?
Yeah, definitely. I'll actually give you a real example. And because now as SEOs, we talk about not optimizing content for keywords, but optimizing for intent. You can't optimize for keywords anymore when people ask questions longer than 3 words. So for example, best men's blazers, that's a search, and I could go to Google for that. I wouldn't do that in ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity because they encourage a conversation. The average number of words that are put into a prompt today is 23. And 23 is 2 words, and it doesn't sound much. But if I compare 3 best men's blazers with 23, what are the best men's blazers for winter 2025 that are under 300 quid and suitable for smart casual? I think that's roughly 23. That is a prompt. I need a conversation, and not one piece of content can actually answer that. So that's why we need to think about creating content that's multi-step. What was the original question? It was...
Asking you for a practical example.
Oh, that was a
which you perfectly
Yeah.
gave.
So, and that's it. And the thing is, as people, and it's right, Gen Z don't use Google.
Only Malcolm has done the
But he's never going to use Google. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Google. Is he still here? So I say to my son, I say to him, and I used him as my sounding board, how do kids search? And he's 23. I say, buddy, if you're going to search for a new blazer, would you search best men's blazers? And he said, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous. I wouldn't search. He would never search, because within all of the social world that he lives, and he's not a heavy TikTok user, everything that his peers search for, whether it's fashion or products or whatever, will appear in his social feeds. So it almost comes to him. And anybody that's going away, and you look at any university, now, but Alex, you walk around your library, every laptop has got ChatGPT open. It literally does, everywhere. And I teach at university, and everybody's using it. And the behavior and the habits that you pick up in that, multi-turn conversations, when I come back to Google, keywords don't cut it. And that's why we see AI mode, which is the paradigm shift. And it really is a paradigm shift.
So, Alex, from your perspective, what makes conversational search different fundamentally from the traditional search?
Great point. To be honest, I don't think we fully understand how conversational search works, right? There are different implementations, but if we look at very high level, as Joe said, there is on the demand side, by the name, conversational have changed from from a few keywords to very long prompt. But the question is, you have to look at how this prompt is translated into the search engine, right? So, for example, Perplexity, we know that's the original AI search engine, right? Initially, what they do is basically they are linked to the Microsoft Bing search engine API. And when you enter a very complex prompt, of course, we don't know exactly how they do that, but we know at a high level, somehow they are condensing your prompt and translate that into a Microsoft Bing query. And once they take the query back, they're going to generate using their large language model, right? But of course, now they claim they're doing differently. They have their internal search. They were probably doing all the crawling, the indexing by themselves. So with that, I think the important thing first is to, of course, recognize there is a very big change in terms of customer behavior, right? But also in terms of how search engines or AI search are translating this behavior into traditional information retrieval, we need to better understand it, right? That's from the demand perspective. Of course, from the supply perspective, traditionally we have a bunch of links, right? As you have mentioned, we have a bunch of links, and now we have a summary, right? So if you think about this, that's two products bundled together. The first part is information retrieval. The second part is information synthesis or aggregation, right? And AI search engine, when you think about these two components, are they substitutable or are they complementary, is not yet clear. It depends on the quality of the aggregation, right? So those are the open questions that we need to understand. From my perspective, I'm doing a little bit research on this. I just do a lot of tests myself, right? So I try to understand when I put in different prompt, what kind of results come out. Another example for OpenAI. Initially, when they had ChatGPT search, as far as I understand, they don't have a full rank of pages like what Google does, right? They have a very small set of curated website, for example, Wikipedia. For some other what they believe to be high quality website like Financial Times. And they are basically doing retrieval augmented generation based on this subset. If that is going to be a norm, then probably I would really worry about small businesses, right? Because they won't be in this curated list. So again, from that side, we need to understand better how AI search engine works. I think that's number one for me.
So clearly the customer behaviors are changing. Polly, I'm interested to know, so what's the level of awareness of SMEs? Are they aware that they need to do something?
No, they have no idea. So at the moment, so this year, 3 things that has been on their mind: access to finance, access to new talent, access to new markets. Content search is just not on their radar at all. A lot of business trying to make sure that next week's budget is not as bleak as what they're making out, and that's a very real perspective. But from our side of the fence, what we do see is the appetite to learn. So Enterprise Nation is a for-profit company. We work with big brands, Google, Microsoft, and we try and bring them around the table with government. So for us, it's super important for the likes of Google, Microsoft, and others to educate right at the top of the funnel. So how do you go into the spaces and places where these high street brands, these jewelers, these blazer companies show up outside of London, Oxford Street brands or an Amazon or whoever? And so we've run a program with Google. We popped up in 50 places, small towns in Wales, in Scotland, in England, and it's great. You see in real time how teaching them about AI is going to impact how they appear in long tail searches when people are looking for something custom or something very basic. So small businesses don't know, but that's also the opportunity. So I don't know if I understand most of you are probably small businesses yourself, or you work for university, so you also have your hat on of how can I support individuals to improve search, for example, but you might be small businesses yourself, so you have to think about that. But there's also then a worry of the content they have spent years finessing, years to get on page 1 of Google, keyword optimized. Where do you start? And I would suggest, we're 10 years of content. We're not going to be rewriting it. We don't have budgets like that at all. However, we are going to turn it on its head a little bit, look at our top 20 most ranked piece of content in certain parts of our business and sectors and topics that we cover, and then we will make it more optimized for generative search. So that's how we're going to approach this. We have 2 people in our content team, so that's how we can actually manage their time as well. But the awareness from small businesses has to be a collaboration of government and big corporates coming together. And it has to be a level playing field. Like I'd miss the talks around governance and policies, but there has to be some sort of rules and regulations around how much can be spent on AI within big corporates, I think. And if it's a free budget, how can they support small businesses? How can they give back so it's a bit more of a level playing field? That's one side of the fence. The second side of the fence is when you look at access to funding, women only access 1% of funding out there at the moment. In London, it's 0.8% at the moment. It's very, very bleak. If you look at the individuals who are using ChatGPT, I think only 6% are women was the last stat. That could be higher in the last week, who knows, but that's phenomenal. Now, of that 6%, how many are looking at generative search? So all of a sudden, those female entrepreneurs who are building great businesses are not on a level playing field all of a sudden. So again, it's access. The education piece is really key for the small businesses, I think.
That's staggering stat.
Yeah, it's crazy. And this is where the digital skills gap, we're talking about AI, we're in the middle of London and we live in a bit of a bubble. Sorry, we do. Go to a high street anywhere up north potentially, and they will have no idea what you're talking about. They haven't even heard of Shopify yet.
Yeah.
So honestly, I really think like governments need to do something very quickly, because we're talking about lack of investment here in the UK, and small businesses make up 98% of the UK economy. So I feel we need to do something quick.
Okay. So traditional search has always involved two critical stages, the kind of the crawling and the indexing, and then the matching, matching to people's needs. And in this old model, the content creators were happy to be crawled because it brought traffic to their website. But in the new world, people don't need to click anything, right? Because AI serves the information in the conversation. So this alliance is breaking. So I'm interested to understand, Alex, if it's breaking, what's the way forward? Are there any economic framework going, possible, especially for content creators?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is some of my recent research. I looked at both from the regulatory angle and from a sort of design angle, called business model design angle, innovation angle. So many of you probably remember back in end of 2023, there is a big lawsuit between OpenAI and, between New York Times and OpenAI and Microsoft, right? The lawsuit is still going on. The central pieces of tension is based on the notion of fair use, right? Basically, if I'm an AI company, could I just crawl information from a website for free and use that for AI model training, right? And that's the basis of a lot of the subsequent negotiation. But when it comes to AI search, the problem becomes a lot more severe. Right, Laure, as you mentioned, I think there are a lot of studies that shows once Google, for example, provide an AI summary, the link-through rate has dropped dramatically, right? And what do we do there? I think in the long run, Google will realize this is a problem. We'll probably, I don't know if we have time to talk about competition. Right now, if you think about Google as a monopoly, they would have the incentive to curate the content network, right? Because they would benefit the most from that. I personally believe if I'm advising Google, I believe there is a two-way payment system that could make this work, right? If my content is used in the AI summary out of the natural search, organic search results, then if it's only displayed there, or if I'm allowing Google to display my content in AI summary, I should be paid a very small fee. But if through the AI summary, the customer clicks through the AI summary to my website, maybe I will pay Google, right? This way we have the incentive better aligned in that way. That's a hypothetical, that's a theoretical conjecture.
I like that. Pitch that. Where's Google? Are they in the room? No, they weren't. They left.
True that, for companies whose product is information, this is existential, right? I think you do a lot of work for Condé Nast and other publishers. What's their view on this? Are they in trouble?
All publishers are in trouble. Yeah. And I've worked with a number of publishers over the years, and I've seen how their models change. Initially, it was advertising, so everyone who lands on the page, they get some money. And then advertising stopped working because Google didn't like advertising because it slowed websites down and it's ugly and nobody wants to see those skyscraper nobody wants all that nonsense. So that stopped. And then all of the publishers, whether it's The Independent, The Sun, Condé Nast, they all became affiliates. So have you ever noticed when you're searching for best fragrance, best men's lasers, you're searching best advent calendar, every single publisher right now. I'll tell you who's competing to get to the top of page one. Vogue, GQ, Condé Nast, Marie Claire, all those magazines. And they are putting a ton of effort into SEO. Or they were, but that doesn't work anymore. So they're in real trouble. So the options are licensing your content to be used for training. And Reddit's just done quite a good deal recently. The more of their content that appears in AI overview or AI mode, two very different things, then they'll get more from it. Or you can create a walled garden and force people to pay you. Or you can go for litigation in the courts and you'll end up with a deal. So yeah, I wouldn't become a publisher today.
All right. Let's move to strategies to stay visible online, right? And let's stay with you, John, because you said we can't optimize for keywords anymore. We have to optimize for intent. What does it really mean in practice? How do you optimize for intent?
Yeah, that sounds easy, doesn't it? I'll give you. It does, and it's easy to say. So, I'll try and think of an example. So, imagine you want to buy a new barbecue because Christmas is coming up. So before, we just optimized for best gas barbecue or best charcoal barbecue or best barbecues, and we'd end up behind the blue link. So Google now tells us that you have to anticipate not just the first question, but the second and the third follow-up questions. And Liz Reed, Google's VP of Search, said content needs three things to work to up-rank. You need depth, uniqueness, and originality. And why do you need those? Because if I've got 15 websites, maybe 15,000, all talking about the best charcoal barbecue, one of them, they're all going to say the same thing. So Weber's or whatever, one of them is going to stand out. The one that is employing high quality content, verifiable experience, expertise, authority, and trust of the author, authority and trust of the content. And today, if you want to get Gen Z into your site, you got to write fast content. It's got to be seen to be firsthand, authentic, social, and trusted. Why social? Because Google's getting so fed up with everybody rushing off to TikTok and Insta and wherever, it's starting to bring all of those social bits of content in there. And this is the advantage for a small business. Agility. LLMs love uniqueness, but they love fresh content as well. So if you're hitting, and you can do this on a daily basis, you can see a window of opportunity. And I had the conversation with Harrods. What if you're not in the conversation in the AI mode for best hampers? Are you able to push out some content really fast that satisfies intent? What do people want for best hampers? They want a really good hamper that's value for money that can be delivered fast. So it's about anticipating every question your audience would ask, not stuffing it onto one page, but connecting your pages together so Google can understand the relationship, not just Google, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever. I mean, I could go on, but I won't.
It's great. Lee, what would be your advice for SMEs?
For small businesses at the moment, I bet there's people sweating in this room right now. They're like, we've consumed so much, but we've got to go back to day tomorrow. So I would look at this as like a 1-year plan. When you hit January next year, try and put a plan together between now and the end of year. This is exactly what we're doing at Enterprise Nation. We're looking at our highest ranking content. We're getting our content team to rewrite it, to answer questions and go deeper for a platform journey. So just taking a step back, our content sits on a platform that we built to attract a user, match them to support, keep them engaged, and then they come back and do it all again. So we have always built content to keep them clicking, keep them going. We we're talking about a lot of written content here, but most content right now is video. So YouTube is one of the most used applications in the world right now, and it went through a bit of a dip and now it's come back into a high. And long form content on YouTube is really important and actually could be quicker. You know, if you and your colleague are just having a conversation on a stage, you can just upload this to YouTube and it will be there forever. So we're also saying to small businesses, diversify your content, look at posting on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. But also the video content is super important as well, but also transcribing that so it will appear in ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. So that's our advice at the moment. But I would also say, don't forget the community. So for us, we are a small business support platform. Content is king for us. It is very important, but it is just the first step to scale the community. We started off with a few hundred members. We now have over 150,000. Next year, what we are doubling down on is in-person events. And, you know, I know we're talking about AI and search, and it's very, very important. But those businesses that will do really well in 2026 is those who are doing stuff like this and a good blend of an on-platform experience as well. So as a small business, we're looking at what events will really hit home for small businesses, startups all over the UK next year. And the content is a part of that. But if you think about it, all that event content is then uploaded onto YouTube, shorts on TikTok, etc. So I think search is very important, but for us, community is one of our values. It's the heart of what we do. So don't forget about how you're scaling your community. When someone buys your product or when someone clicks on your service, how are you making sure that they come back? They have a bit of loyalty with your brand. And that's our message to our small businesses. They feel like this is noise around them. And for us, we're always thinking, what's the value you're adding to your customer, your end user? And that could be in multiple forms. So yeah, don't forget the community.
John, I just want to quick follow up. I want to double click on the strategies for larger businesses. And are there any major differences between, say, I'm a B2B brand like Ryco or versus a retailer? Are there any different strategies there?
Yeah, there are. There are. I mean, yeah, so working with a brand like Rico, I shouldn't say it, but yes, many B2B, the content kind of sounds boring, and it is boring, but I love what you said about video. And what I would say to these brands is get your experts to have discussions about the inspiration behind the printer that they but printers are boring, but there's got to be something exciting in terms of how we had the vision to create this particular unit. And I've said this to a number of B2Bs I'm working with, because that short form, long form, doesn't matter. And all of the words that you see in AI mode, okay, in Google, a lot of that comes from video content. And if you are genuinely authentic and firsthand, and seen as an authority, then you will get the citations, and it's about getting your brand mentioned in the conversation. So should somebody want to click and go and buy or find out more about B2B, then they'll do it through there.
Yeah. Let's just want to talk a little bit about the traffic decline, because we've seen traffic declines of 10 to 20% in UK, but also in Europe. And I mean, for which businesses is this an existential crisis versus just changing metrics? And is it a real problem for content providers? And maybe Alex, you can answer that.
Yeah, sure. 2 points. One quick thing I want to follow up on what you have just mentioned about content. We've been talking about how generative AI enhance the search will affect business, right? On the other hand, they talked a lot about content generation, right? If you think about it, generative AI has a super big impact on content generation. We have to be very careful with that. Of course, it lowers the cost of content generation, but what kind of content does it generate, right? Joe has mentioned we want the three things. The last, I don't remember, the last thing is originality.
Uniqueness.
That's the uniqueness and originality. So what we've found in recent research of ours is basically generative AI is it's increasing the similarity of marketing content. right? How do we do that? I won't bore you with the heavy sort of data science part, but we did a very scientific study that is using the 2023 Italian ChatGPT ban as the experiment. So during that month, basically Italian companies, Italian users, they can't use ChatGPT. And we crawled out all the Instagram posts, small businesses post on Instagram in that month. We compare that with comparable businesses in other countries. Guess what happened? During that period, Italian Instagram posts are become more diversified compared to the other comparable companies. What about market engagement, consumer engagement? It turns out they actually collect more likes when they're more unique, right? When they're more original. Of course, we're still going to use generative AI for content creation, but it needs to be a more carefully curated process, right? That's what I was going to add on this. In terms of which companies are going to be affected, I'm sure you two have better real-world data. I'll provide a little bit theoretical background way for you to think about it, right? Who is going to be affected the most by generative search? Is those who generative search can very, very highly substitute, right? So in economics, we care about substitutability or complementarity. If you offer something that is easily substitutable by generative search, then you're in trouble. If you manage to somehow offer something complementary, this could actually benefit you. For example, if you think about traditional search and generative search, what's the difference, right? Using John's example, if I'm looking for a jacket or blazer, relative search, organic search will give me a bunch of links, while generative search will give me a more carefully curated list. If you are a business traditionally and offering this type of information aggregation service, I would be really worried. Right. That's why. So earlier this year, when we have Gemini or Google just introducing the AI mode, a lot of travel bloggers are really protesting. Right. This is something that is highly substitutable by what the AI mode offers. Yeah, I'll leave the more rich examples to you.
I was just going to say on the content piece as well, like please try to use faces as much as possible. So the big thing of why what we're hearing in the UK, especially in every country, is very different. They don't trust the results when it's just written form and very AI generated imagery. And I hear from some small businesses, oh my God, ChatGPT has changed my life because now I can quickly generate content, but they're actually getting less likes. And that's because it's not trustworthy, it's not transparent, and it looks like it's been generated by AI. So I would kind of echo the point of, and this is why I go back to community, talk to your people, talk to your communities, get pictures with them, showcase them, because these are the brands that will make it through this wave and kind of succeed and stay around.
And just sorry to add to that, I've seen so many examples of businesses that have created a ton of content in a short space of time using ChatGPT. You will find yourself gone from the index very rapidly. And Google had a spam update this year that cleaned up 40% of the junk in the search results. It's got another spam update coming before the end of this year. If you're using AI, you have to state what you're using it for, where it is, what its purpose is. And at the end of the day, if your content isn't verifiably written by an experienced expert who is an authority, who can be trusted and verified off-site on social media, for example, on LinkedIn, that content won't be believed. It won't be believed by the LLM, and that's where it's difficult.
That's very interesting, not being believed and trusted by the LLM.
It's all about trust. And at the end of the day, what is Google's AI? It's nothing more than this thing called Gemini that takes your really long search about blazers, splits it up into 10 different searches, does a fan out, grabs that information, comes back and synthesizes it. But before you even get synthesized, you have to tick the experience, expertise, authority, and trust boxes and layer on fast content, first-hand, authentic, social trusted.
So let's move quickly to the future before we close. Are we heading towards a world where websites become irrelevant? Will search become entirely mediated by LLMs and AI agents? And if AI agents start making purchase decisions for us, what happens to cross-selling? And what happens to the entire e-commerce model?
Small question. I'll start off with a little bit just on that in terms of the future. I feel like we're starting to see this with content creators. It's all about them. It's not a brand that sits behind them. It's not a company that sits behind them. Content creators are creating trust between a user because they're trying to solve a problem or they relate to a problem that they have. Young girls watch other young girls do a shopping haul on YouTube and then they see what they're going to purchase and they're like, this is great because she looks like me, she dresses like me, she shops like me. That's going to be the future. So I go back to the community piece and your own personal brand of what you're trying to create. If you're a founder in the room, I really urge you, and I've just done this task with my team, go back to your vision, go back to your mission. I'm not saying spend days on it. We don't have days. Spend a couple of hours on, are you still grounded on what your vision and mission and your why is? Because that why creates the content. What is the problem we're trying to solve for end users? That is the content that will then lead them to your product, your service. So try and be the bit more the face of your brand. If you are a solo founder, if you have your team, get them in front of the camera. So I honestly lean into people will be the ones who kind of make it through this AI wave. We've just heard there that Google removed spam, but they can't remove you as a brand. They can't remove your social media platform, your opinion, your voice, your YouTube videos. So I urge us all to go back kind of 10 years ago and get in front of a camera. I know it's not comfortable, but talk more about why you're an expert in the space of why you started this business. And that would be my advice and the sort of future.
Alex, very quickly, and then John.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely concur I'll concur your point. I do think the current AI search may actually be a transient phase because we're moving so quickly with AI, right? It's very likely, and I would personally very much love the idea that I can have an agent who can buy things for me. Don't enjoy shopping that much. So that would be great, right? Cross-selling, it's something that a lot of business, of course, care a lot about. But when it comes to AI agent, we need to understand the agents. We need to understand the agent's behavior, and more broadly, this is what we do with our students when we teach AI, right? In the business setting, take each of your business processes, break it down to different steps, and figure out for each step, can AI do better than you do in the current step? And if yes, which AI will basically replace you or assist you for this step, right? Would it be you are building an AI agent to do this? For example, the search landscape could change. I can very easily use LLM to build a front end of the search engine. The back end, I'm basically going to connect it to a Google API. I'm not bothered by paid search, all this anymore, right? That could be a good thing. And but for other things, maybe you want to condense the activities and only focus on the one of that you truly have core competence. That's my general suggestion.
Cool. And then, just to finish, Ollie, I totally agree with what you said about video, but I would say that is right now. And we are seeing brands like Giorgio Armani who are struggling in organic search because of creators, young female creators saying, I tried this product and I loved it, and here are 5 reasons why it's great. They are beating the brands hand over fist. And in terms of, while we're all worried about AI, Google's got a very clear trajectory that's 4 stages, multimodal right now. Multimodal, as an example, this morning I was walking along on my watch. The buckle came apart. I thought, how do I fix that? So I took a picture of it and Googled and I said, how do I adjust this clasp? And it gave me some answers. I said, no, can you give me a video? And it gave me a video. So I'm going to fix that on the way home. So we're multimodal. Next step is visualization. And we're going to see that in the next couple of weeks, especially in the lead up to Christmas with products appearing. Then it's personalization, then it's agentic. And at that stage, all our websites will be reduced to the plumbing of the internet. And there's nothing we can do about it. And that terrifies me because it's been my job for 23 years to optimize websites. But that's not working.
Right note.
Sorry.
We have perhaps a couple of minutes for questions in the room and online.
Yeah, I'll start with Charlie.
I have a very practical question for John. In the past, if you were trying to optimize for keywords, you go to whatever keyword tool you use to analyze the masses and masses of search data that existed that Google, for example, made public. What's the equivalent in the new world?
That's such a good question. You're talking about search volumes.
So for ChatGPT, for example, if you wanted to analyze the intent you were talking about, what people are asking it, etc., what would you do?
Well, in the old days, you'd break a business down into keywords that represented this ecosystem. So if you're selling barbecues, you'd have like maybe 1,000 keywords. Now we break it down into conversations, and a conversation is nothing but keywords together. So those keywords all have an associated value in the old world that you can translate into a new world. So you can actually start to understand the value of a conversation based upon the intent tagged to keywords. Yeah, we do.
Thank you very much. I have actually tons of questions, so I will push only one. Only one, I know. Monetization of search. So, what we discuss here is a lot about organic content or content leading to organic search. But Google and Microsoft and others, Meta as well, how making a lot of their business model on paid search. So how will this work with GenAI, and when we will see the monetization of search in GenAI?
Imminently. Go on.
A little bit of theoretical answer again, sorry. I think it eventually depends on the network effect, right? So Google is able to monetize search because it has very strong network effect. And now we see when we have generative AIs, to some extent, the entry barrier for search engine is lowered, right? I can build a search engine. And because I don't have that network effect, or I don't have very strong bargaining power, I won't be able to monetize that. The other channel, if you look at, is the generative AI, the two providers, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, right? I don't see that yet, but if they are able to build very very strong network effect, or somehow customer loyalty, I believe they will do that. Won't you? If I'm ChatGPT, I would certainly insert ad in it.
I think ChatGPT are about to do the launch, or have already, or trialed it, where you can literally buy the blazer, right?
Yeah, they're doing that now.
Yeah, so I feel like they'll make their money off the back of that, like how Etsy takes listing fees. Exactly. Yep.
That is my
Christmas.
Any more questions? Oh, we have one over here.
Thank you very much. This was a really interesting topic, and I enjoyed the academic look on it. For me, when we think about search, that's a marketing whole dilemma. Do you put your money on bottom of the funnel, which would be paid search, or top of the funnel, which is the brand and brand storytelling? So from what I've heard today, it seems to me that you are alluding to brand storytelling, bringing your brand, your narrative to life. The challenge that marketing has always had has been, how do they prove return on investment for that upper funnel activity? Now, I feel for AI agents to surface your brand more, you need to invest in brand storytelling. How do you measure it? How do you make the case to your finance board stakeholders to to prove that this is working?
I'm happy to go first on that. Really good question. We scaled our community. We probably acquired 1% of our members through paid ads. We don't do any paid advertising to acquire 150,000 members, which when I was first reading their book back in the day, I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to spend so much money on paid advertising. So for us, what helped convert those members was top of the funnel, organic content curated to solve the problem for the user. In front of that would be a member, a small business that looks like them. So the small business founder, the florist, female founder in London, she was telling her story. And then another female florist who's looking for funding would read that story and then be like, okay, great. That's how Enterprise Nation solved that problem. So for us, it's very black and white in terms of brand and storytelling is what you're trying to achieve, right? You're trying to tell the brand and tell the story, show the brand and tell the story. But how you're doing that is through video, through a TikTok video, through a social media post. All of those have impressions, reach, clicks, conversions, just like paid search does or paid advertising. So the measure's the same for us. We put value into our organic content that we curate, and then we actually measure it against the paid content. So yeah, I would say the brand and the storytelling is just like what you're trying to achieve, but how you do that can still be measured, definitely. But how you get budgets from, I mean, I don't know if you work for a big corporate. What's your role? What do you do? Okay. Yeah, one thing as well, what you're talking about selling printers, just make sure you have someone exciting in front of the camera selling the printers because it could go horribly wrong.
Good science there.
Yeah, you really need someone who understands where you're going as a CMO, head of marketing in these big brands and corporates, to understand that brand and storytelling is really important right now. We're seeing a lot of brands like Giorgio Armani, their CMO getting let go because, and other fashion brands, major fashion brands, because their CMOs are not keeping up with the way the communities are being scaled now. So yeah, I think it's disappointing if CMOs don't see that, to be honest, and the value in it.
Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you for the audience for questions. I think we're going to have to stop here because we have another session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.